Heading into the Week 5 matchup, we're going to look at a few Chicago Bears players that I'm expecting to step up in Week 5. Plus, we're going to look at an article that's grading both the Bears rookies and the offensive line a quarter of the way through the season. We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all, man. I want to start off this talking about players that we can look that showed a lot last week in Week 4, and we're trying to see how they can build off the Week 4s that they had to bring something to the Chicago Bears. We're also going to talk about some players that just need to step it up, whether it be through how the coaching staff are using them or because of their own individual performance. We're going to start off with the players who definitely had a big week that we're looking to kind of build off on. First one is DeAndre Swift. I mean, what can you say about DeAndre Swift? This was the first game in the Chicago Bears uniform that DeAndre Swift looked like the player that we brought him here to be. And that is a big deal when you look at it. Look at it. The 93 yards on the ground, the 72 yards in the air. Now, you're not going to always have those production numbers, right? But the way in which the Bears used him and the way that when he got into that open field, it's up to the coaching staff to put him in the right position. Yes, DeAndre Swift has his shortcomings, make no mistake about it, but they knew that when they signed him. It's up to the coaches to be able to put DeAndre Swift in the proper positions to take advantage of his skill set. That just is what it is when it comes down to it. Both him and Roschon Johnson offer a nice complementary skill set that you're going to have to take a look at how you can best utilize that, especially while you're still trying to establish your pass game to go down the field a little bit more. Having that production from a DeAndre Swift could be really big for the Chicago Bears. And so, listen, we know what Swift is capable of when the offensive line run blocks for him in the way that he needs them to do, right? And you know, I know that some are going to say, well, if he's so dependent on the offensive line, why didn't Ryan Poles invest more in the offensive line? And you're right. But at the end of the day, right, like every player has their own shortcomings and their own benefits that they bring to a team. And one of the benefits that DeAndre Swift brings to this team is that if you can get him in the open field, he can make things happen for you. Now, a shortcoming of that is that what we've seen so far here in Chicago, he needs that offensive line to produce at a certain level that we haven't seen sustain yet to get the best out of DeAndre Swift. But that's where also using Roschon Johnson is important at as well. And that gets us to our next player that we're going to talk about that I never thought I'd be talking about, not at least in this way that you got to look at it, and that's Doug Kramer. The Bears found a very interesting way to use Doug Kramer in Week 4 that I want to see them build off of, and that's having Doug Kramer line up as a fullback. Now, he specifically did that with Roschon Johnson as the running back there. And when you look at the touchdown that Roschon Johnson scored, that came off Doug Kramer opening up that short yardage opportunities for Roschon Johnson. So I'm not saying that you want to go a whole lot to it. In no way am I saying all of a sudden now I want to see Doug Kramer out there for 5-10 snaps playing fullback. But listen, for a guy in Doug Kramer that played only 2 offensive snaps in his career up until that point, and he played 2 playing at fullback, and both those plays, he looked pretty damn good at it. Maybe a way that you can get Doug Kramer in there and start building some confidence for Doug Kramer, who is a big body when that comes down to it. So, especially with Kari Blasingame still inactive, things like that, finding a way to use Doug Kramer to help open up even more for Roschon Johnson. Listen, that's 2 big bodies that you got out there that can bang with defensive linemen and even some linebackers if they get up to that second level. So I think when it comes down to it, if Doug Kramer is offering you a better opportunity to get more out of Roschon Johnson, hell, maybe even you put him in there sometimes with DeAndre Swift to open some things up. Again, in no way am I saying Doug Kramer all of a sudden needs to make the conversion from a center to a fullback. Apparently, I wasn't aware of this. He played some fullback in high school and a little bit in college, so maybe, right? I'm not saying that yet, but maybe. But for Doug Kramer, a player that you've held on to for a while, that you're trying to find a way, if this ends up being the specialty way that you can use him at, listen, as long as it's getting results, do it, right? We're trying to find a rhythm with this offense. We're trying to find something that we can start doing more often and can find success in. And if Doug Kramer, Roschon Johnson in your backfield ends up being one of those specialty combinations that you can go to, again, you don't want to go to it probably every game, But so far, I want to see a little bit more of it, and I think that the Bears owe themselves that as well. And so definitely Roschon Johnson. You got to look at him having a big game for the Chicago Bears team. And if that combination with him and Doug Kramer ends up being something you can build off on, then that's what you want to do as well. Next up, as far as a player that we're going to talk about is, of course, the guy who should have won Defensive Player of the Week. Again, I'm a Bears fan. I may be a bit of a homer about this. It is what it is. Sue me. But it is Jaquan Brisker when it comes down to it. Jaquan Brisker, we talked about on yesterday's episode in both the live stream and the daily episode, how having him now only 48% in the box because he's able to roam around and do more things because of the way and the versatility you're able to use him and Kevin Byard in. Listen, 12 tackles, 2 for a loss, 1 sack, 1 pass breakup, 1 interception. You get Jaquan Brisker going, and listen, keep building off of what we're doing right now. The versatility that Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon both bring, right? They're two of our more versatile players when you look at using them both in pass defense and run defense. If that continues for this team, that could be something that as we continue building this momentum, we already talked about in yesterday's episode how good the Chicago Bears pass rush and front four has been without needing to blitz. Imagine if you find ways to start going into some of that blitz in that area. I'm telling you guys right now, Jaquan Brisker is going to have a big 2024 season, and I wouldn't be surprised if those interception numbers, he's had 1 interception in each of his years so far. I'm talking about 5 interceptions from Jaquan Brisker this year. But more importantly than the number, just look at what he's doing right now. He's yet to allow a passing touchdown so far. Then on top of that, when teams pass the guy that he's guarding, 67.9%. Last year, it was, not 9%, 67.9 QB rating. Last year, it was 110 QB rating he was allowing when it comes down to it. Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker have been so much more of a better fit than what Eddie Jackson and Jaquan Brisker have been that, hey, man, it's big. And Jaquan Brisker also developing into one of the leaders for the Chicago Bears team. That's what you want to see when it comes down to it. So overall, I'm really liking that. And the way that Jaquan Brisker is growing and developing on top of that, we got to continue to build off of that and what we're getting out of him as well. And then the last player that I'm going to talk about on that defensive side of the ball is DeMarcus Walker. And much like we talked about how the Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker combination is really getting the best out of both those players so far in the season, adding Darrell Taylor and having that and Austin Booker, who we're going to talk a little bit about later as well, having these two guys being able to be here to free up DeMarcus Walker to play more interior or go to the outside whenever he needs to, it's gotten the best out of DeMarcus Walker. His pass rush win rate is outstanding. His run defense win rate is outstanding. He is right now playing the best football he's played in the Chicago Bears uniform on a defensive line that is performing at a great level. We got to keep building off of that. And I think if we do, you're looking at these things being things that you really want to see continue to go this week. Now, as far as the players that I need better from, again, this isn't coming down necessarily on the players. Oh, I forgot to mention. No, I got another player that I want to mention something positive on. Tory Taylor. Listen, Tory Taylor showed last week why you draft a punter in the 4th round. Now, I would say this, we need more performances like that. It's not going to be every single game, but what Tory Taylor did, listen, he's pinning that opposing team down. And if that's something that you can bet on, especially when you need it the most, I'm telling you right now, especially with where the league is going, man, I'm telling you right now, bro. Tory Taylor, it has the chance to be a very special talent for the Chicago Bears team, and we need to see more big performances from Tory Taylor. Ideally, you don't want to see your punter out there a whole hell of a lot, right? But in what he's able to do, he has a special talent, and let's continue using that, especially while this offense is still finding their rhythm. Now, as far as the players that I need to see more from, DJ Moore is the first one that I got to talk about here. And again, I'm not putting this on DJ Moore himself, right? I'm not putting this all on DJ Moore. 22 catches for 189 yards and 1 touchdown through 4 games. That's not good. When you look at this time last year, for example, for DJ Moore, 230 yards and 3 touchdowns is what he had. His production is down across the board. Now, like I said, a lot of that is this offense just not finding him in the way that we need him to run to. Most of his routes have been horizontal. He's catching basically only Hail Mary passes. And when it comes down to it, he's averaging the fewest number of receiving yards for his career at 47.3. DJ Moore is too talented for me to blame this all on him. He's your wide receiver 1, and the lack of production comes down to your offensive play calling, you're scheming, your offensive line, but you got to find a way to get DJ Moore the ball more, and we need better production from DJ Moore. That just goes without saying. We need better from DJ Moore. I was harsh on DeAndre Swift when DeAndre Swift wasn't putting up the production numbers, whether that was just on him. That I'm just looking at the raw numbers. That's why I say this isn't personal to the player. I know he's capable more. I know DJ Moore has the talent that we need to bring what we need from him. So this isn't just me shitting on DJ Moore, but at the end of the day, we got to find a way to use him better, and we have to get better production out of DJ Moore. We just have to. So he's a player that I want to see perform better and start to get on track next week if possible. And another one I'm going to talk about is Gerald Everett. Gerald Everett has been very disappointing so far. When it came through at the start of the season, playing more snaps than Cole Kmet, getting more targets than Cole Kmet, and we just haven't seen the production from him. We just haven't seen him do it. 61% of the snaps he played in week 1. And that's down a lot when you look at last week. So he's just hasn't done anything on offense for us at all. Now, we typically thought that Shane Walters was going to run some 2 tight end sets more than what we did, but we just haven't seen that. And, while he's gotten snaps, it just hasn't been what it's been at all. So he ran 15 routes in the first 3 games, 3 last week. It's not good enough. Cole Kmet. Now, I do like that Cole Kmet's routes have gone up. 33 routes in both week 3 and week 4, so that's really good. But we need Gerald Everett to provide what we thought he was going to bring in some shape, form, or fashion. Now, some of that comes via the offense just being stagnant. So again, like I said, this isn't necessarily to come down on the players themselves, but this is to talk about realistically where we are right now with the Chicago Bears. We're just not getting what we need out of a lot of our offensive weapons. And that comes down to scheming. That comes down to Shane Waldron. That comes down to some other things. Let's start getting this thing on track. All right. With that said, let's move into the next topic for today. And I want to talk about, we'll talk about this article. This one comes from Parker Hurley, in which, before we get into that, I almost forgot a topic. Listen, I'm old. I'll be forgetting the topic. It's really important. In talking about these players that I need to see more from, that I want to see more from, a big reason of that is that, listen, the Bears have had an easy schedule so far, and we've made it out of that 2-2. And then when you look at the remaining schedule left in the NFL, the Chicago Bears have the second hardest schedule remaining in the NFL. When you look at that, of course, we got the Commanders, we got the Seahawks on that are inflating that strength of schedule since they're both 3-1 right now, and the strength of schedule was fluid. It changes after wins and losses each week, right? But when you got that, you also got the Minnesota Vikings that looked damn good. We got 2 matchups coming up against the Detroit Lions after the bye week. They are a Super Bowl contender, it looks like right now. And just looking within our own division, still the Green Bay Packers, while they aren't looking the best as far as record-wise, they sit in the same place we are, they still are a team that you cannot take lightly. The Bears have the second hardest strength of schedule remaining in the NFL, so it's important that the Bears use these next 2 games. Listen, I tell you, I'm happy with 500 if they can go into the bye week 3-3, but if you can go into that bye week 4-2, you need to do that with also getting your offense in rhythm because, look, it's going to be a difficult stretch in the second half of the season for the Bears. Now, the defense still gives me faith. I want to be clear there. The way that we play defense, it's always going to give me faith in this team to be able to be in winnable games, right? But we need this offense to continue going and getting things right because if they don't, shit ain't getting any easier for the Chicago Bears anytime soon. It's not getting any easier for the Bears anytime soon. And if we continue to perform the way that we have, hey man, listen, it's about to be ugly, ugly, ugly for the Chicago Bears team. So let's hope that the Bears can start riding the ship. Let's hope that they can start getting it together because if they don't, we're in for a shit show. And it's not going to be positive for us at all. So we really got to get some things in gear offensively. We got to, I talked about some of the keys for the offense in the last episode. We got to keep that thing going. And if we can't, like I said, it's going to be an ugly latter half of the season for the Chicago Bears. We got to get this thing together. The only team with the harder schedule than the Chicago Bears remaining in the season are the Cleveland Browns, right? It's us. It's the Browns, us, the New York Giants, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Detroit Lions with the 5 hardest schedules remaining in the NFL. We got to get this shit together. And if we offense can't start getting together a little bit more, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But with that said, I want to move on to 2 articles from Parker Hurley in which he graded the rookie class a quarter of the way through the season. I'm going to say what his grade is, then I'm going to give my grade. Some of these guys, you'll see, right? So with Caleb Williams, he talks about Caleb Williams taking too many sacks. He talks about his ability to maybe not face the pressure the correct way, not going the downfield. And I think that's all fair criticisms on him. His deep ball accuracy is probably one of the most concerning because, again, we know the arm strength that Caleb Williams has, and we just haven't getting to see benefit of that so far. Now, Parker Hurley rated Caleb Williams a C+ so far on the season, and I'm going to be a little bit more harsh on that because of my own expectations for Caleb Williams. Now, keep in mind, not a lot more harsh, just a little bit more harsh. And I told you guys, Caleb Williams was going to have a rookie season, a normal rookie season. But at the end of the day, he gave Caleb Williams a C+. I'm going to give Caleb Williams a C-, mainly because of the inaccuracy down the field. And I'm talking about at times where you have a guy that you should have hit, right? Not if guys are in coverage, not if the Bears just but in the times where you have the time, you get it downfield, and the inaccuracy throws you off. I have to give him a C- for that. But again, he also get a bit of a buffer because of how bad the offense has been overall. The play calling through the first 3 weeks, at least 3.5 games. In the second half of week 4, it got a lot better. Let's see how it's going to continue to develop for Caleb. Rome Odunze. He rated Rome Odunze C+ as well. Now, he did point out the fact that Malik Neighbors already has almost 400 yards. Brian Thomas has 275 yards. Marvin Harrison Jr. with 243 yards. Rome Odunze, not near that at all. And so when it comes down to it, we need better out of Rome Odunze. But again, it's hard to get better when your quarterback's struggling. We're not going down the field, and we're not really getting a lot of offensive yards overall. So, that you get a buffer for all those things. But overall, it's just, again, all this gets a negative buffer because of just where the offense is right now. We're not in a great place. I thought that Rome Odunze would have, we're talking about coming into the season, could all 3 wide receivers have 1,000-yard years? Right now, it looks like none of them may have 1,000-yard years, right? So that we got to improve through that. Now, he had 112 yards in week 3. Other than that, 54 yards and 4 catches. He's had one big game so far. And so outside of the 266 yards the 166 yards he has receiving, it's just the opportunity being there. But I got to give Rome Odunze a C- as well for me. Next up, Kieran Amagaje. Now, this is the grade that I don't agree with at all. He gave Kieran Amagaje a B+. Now, Kieran Amagaje started off the first 2 weeks. He was inactive to start the season. He played 4 special team snaps, and he hasn't played a whole lot for the Chicago Bears. But to give Kieran Amagaje a B+ so far, I guess you're taking into consideration the things that are out of him. He hasn't been on the field a whole lot, some special team snaps, some things like that. But overall, it's incomplete for me. I just haven't seen enough from Kieran Amagaje for me to feel comfortable giving him any type of grade really through it. We just haven't seen a lot of him. So, I want to see more and more from Kieran Amagaje. We'll see what happens there. It's good that he's practicing. It's good that he's healthy. But let's get him on the field, and let's then start grading. So incomplete for me for Kieran Amagaje. For Torrey Taylor, listen, he gave Torrey Taylor a B+. I'm going to give Torrey Taylor an A. He's a punter. For what a punter is supposed to do, he's more than exceeded it. And keep in mind, the fact that we're even talking about a punter means that he's basically getting an A, because how often do you really talk about punters? What Torrey Taylor has been able to do, to me, he gets an A for that. Austin Booker. Now, this is an interesting grade here. Austin Booker, a fifth-round pickup so far. He has 48 snaps played through the first 4 games for the Chicago Bears. In those 48 snaps, he has 2 pressures, 4 tackles. He played 20 snaps against the Houston Texans, 14 snaps against the Rams last week as well. And those were his 2 most productive games of the season. But when it comes down to it, the Bears have gotten really good production overall on that, so it hasn't really opened up a lot. He's been used more as kind of a high-energy guy on clear passing downs. So, he gets a bit of a buffer for that. But I think out of what Austin Booker showed in the preseason to what his role has been so far, you got to factor that in. And while he gave Austin Booker an A, I'm going to give Austin Booker a B personally. But I'd love to hear from you guys on how you grade the Chicago Bears rookie through the first quarter of the season. But Parker Hurley had another article in which he graded the Chicago Bears offensive line, and he was a lot more positive than what I would give him. So, for example, Braxton Jones, 274 snaps so far for him. And the fact of the matter is that Braxton Jones just has not improved at all. I said this coming into the season when people said I was harsh on Braxton Jones. He's still the exact same player with the exact same limitations that he's had. He basically is. Like, it's just, and again, I think that Braxton Jones, especially if we're able to upgrade that position and get a better starter in there as a depth piece, great as that depth piece that's able to come in. But as a starter, listen, he's a below average starter in the NFL. That just is what it is. And, he gives Braxton Jones a B+. I'll tell you right now, there's only a couple players that are getting above a C-, and Braxton Jones to me gives a D, especially after that performance against Jared Verse, a D for me. Now, next up, Tevin Jenkins, 227 snaps so far for Tevin Jenkins. He gave Tevin Jenkins a B-. Now, Tevin Jenkins, through the first 3 games that he played for, he left early in week 4. I mean, in a way, he's still been the best offensive lineman for the Chicago Bears. He's allowed 2 sacks so far in the season. So, that's what it comes down to. But C+ for me from that. Matt Pryor, though. Matt Pryor only played 49 snaps so far. But I tell you what, the way that he changed the energy, the way that he had made the heads-up play when Caleb Williams had the fumble and he was able to get on top of it, to me, Matt Pryor gets a B for me. He's going to get a B for me. Again, very limited snaps, but he gets a B for me. Coleman Shelton, D-. He gave him a D-. I agree with that D-. I like Coleman Shelton has just been bad. And I can't wait for Ryan Bates to come back because we need every bit of the improvement that Ryan Bates can potentially bring to this offensive line, in my opinion. That's just why I've been pretty positive today. I'm just going to shut up. I'm going to leave it at that. Coleman Shelton, D-. I agree with that. I also give him a D-. Nate Davis, 138 snaps. He gave Nate Davis a D. I'm going to give Nate Davis a D-. And I think that's just what it comes down to. Ryan Bates, also, we've talked about it. And then you get to Darnell Wright. 275 snaps played for Darnell Wright. He gives Darnell Wright a C-. Here's the thing. Darnell Wright has really taken a step back. And I think trying to separate my disappointment for the anticipation I have for what Darnell Wright could be in his second year and the leap that he can make, taking that aside, the overall is things that have just been tough on this offensive line. That overall, he gave Darnell Wright a C+, a D+ for me. I listen, and maybe that's harsh on me on the rookie, but the rookie left. He showed so much last season. It just sucks that we're not seeing any bit of that this season. So, but let me know your guys' grades for the Bears, offensive line and how you guys feel about that. But that's my time for today. Make sure you guys are following the show at Shy Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you guys want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number 1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.